You're watching 2 News Works for You in high definition.
Well, this is obviously an incredibly devastating event. It's our worst nightmare.
Sadness in Stillwater. Oklahoma State University is mourning the loss of 2 women's basketball coaches in a plane crash. I'm Karen Larson.
And I'm Russ McCaskey. Thanks for joining us. OSU players and fans, as you might imagine, are in shock after 2 coaches and 2 longtime donors were killed in a plane crash. The crash happened around 4:30 yesterday afternoon, about 45 miles northwest of Little Rock. Women's head basketball coach Kurt Budke and assistant coach Miranda Serna were on a recruiting trip.
Longtime OSU donor and former state senator Olin Brandstetter was the pilot. His wife Paula, also a pilot, was on board too. We have team coverage from the crash site and in Stillwater. We begin with 2 News reporter Jason Grubbs, who is live near Perryville, Arkansas. Jason.
Karen, we should be learning more about this crash here in a few moments. NTSB investigators just came out from the crash site. They've been there since about 2:30 this afternoon. They are working in some very difficult conditions. We're in the Ouachita Mountains, and it is covered with heavily wooded areas, cliffs, rocks. In fact, as far as you can drive in, they've got to hike another quarter of a mile. Nearly 24 hours after the crash, NTSB investigators arrive on the scene. Behind them, the coroner's office. Getting to the site is a challenge.
The terrain's pretty rough. It's on the side of a hill. It's kind of rocky in that area a little bit, so it's pretty rough to get in there and investigate.
Perry County Sheriff Scott Montgomery says there is very little information about what happened.
The last traffic that they had with the pilot was he did a weather check through Little Rock.
A hunter a couple of miles off heard the plane having engine trouble, then saw it spiral out of control before crashing. He called 911 and gave his GPS coordinates.
Between their GPS coordination and Arkansas State Police helicopter, they finally found a crash about an hour and a half later.
And there are still lots of questions at this hour. We should find more answers here in just a few minutes. Jason Grubbs reporting live from Perryville, Arkansas. Back to you.
All right, Jason, thanks. Certainly it was a difficult day in Stillwater. School leaders worked to comfort players and students. 2 News reporter Casey Roebuck spent the day on campus.
Leaders of this university describe both of these coaches as mentors to their students and friends to them. Tonight, they're trying to find a way to deal with their own grief while they comfort the players and students as well.
It's a family around here, and you can really get that close, and you kind of have the highs and the lows that every family experiences, so it really binds you together. So when you lose somebody, or in this case 2, I think it may be worse than it's the worst thing I can think of.
As word of the tragedy spread across the OSU campus, students gathered at the arena to pay their respects to Coach Kurt Budke and assistant coach Miranda Serna. Their loss to the program, the school, and the team are so profound, it's tough for those who were close to them to even put the loss into words.
I hope I can be the type coach he was and the type father and husband he was. He's somebody to look up to, no question. And I just, very selfishly, I'm going to miss being able to pick up the phone and call him. He was very good to me, very good.
A memorial banner is on display in the East Lobby for students and fans to sign. It will be there for at least the next week. The university is also working on putting together a memorial service for the victims, and they hope to hold that on Monday. Reporting tonight from Stillwater, Casey Roebuck, 2 News Works for You.
Casey, thanks. Now, the Cowgirls were scheduled to play Grambling University tomorrow. That game has been canceled, but the visiting team went to the arena today to pay their respects. Very classy move. They left flowers at the memorial and said a prayer to honor the victims.
Now, the loss is being felt all over the university. 2 News reporter Brianne Palmerini spoke with students.
Here at the Student Union, grief counselors have been available throughout the day. Students I've talked to say they're simply shocked.
Whether you know them or don't know them, it affects you.
It shakes us all.
As soon as word of the tragedy reached OSU's counseling staff, they moved into action, setting up a table inside the Student Union. They have pamphlets and tissues available for students passing through.
I imagine a lot of people will be having reactions both from this tragedy, but also this sort of event can stir up other grief reactions that people have had.
Many students are associating this tragedy to the plane crash that rocked Oklahoma State University 10 years ago. In January 2001, 10 men associated with the OSU men's basketball team died in a Colorado plane crash.
This happened 10 years ago, and remember watching that, but now being actually involved.
OSU's counseling staff has been able to expand their services in the wake of that tragedy.
Grief counseling is one of the things that we emphasize because of the tragedy that happened 10 years ago.
Students say this is something that will continue to be on their hearts and minds, but they're looking to find a silver lining.
There's a buzz about it, you know, and I think that's good because people will appreciate the people who they love and who are in, you know, around them now.
Counselors say they will continue to be available if students need their services. In Stillwater, Brianne Palmerini, 2 News Works for You.
Now, the pilot in the crash, former state senator Olin Brandstetter and his wife Paula were longtime OSU supporters. The two met as students at OSU in the 1950s. Both were experienced pilots. In fact, the couple and their son Jack set a world record for becoming the first family to fly over the North Pole in a single-engine aircraft. There's an aviation scholarship at OSU in Paula's name. It was established by her husband back in 2001. Now, as we mentioned, this isn't the first time that OSU's had to deal with a tragedy like this.
2 News Sports Director Big Al Jerkin spoke with former OSU coach Eddie Sutton. Al?
Well, guys, the OSU family's still trying to get over what happened almost 11 years ago, and now another tragedy. It was 10 years and 10 months ago. Then OSU coach Eddie Sutton was dealing with losing 10 friends and trying to help others cope with the handling of such a terrible occurrence. Sutton thought one tragedy was enough at Oklahoma State, now a second at the same university. The loss of Kurt Butke, assistant coach Miranda Cerna, and the pilot and his wife.
But I was just shocked and just, Coach Butke was a dear friend, good coach, but a great people person, and it'll take a while for all of them to get over this. I mean, it has all of us that were a part of that first airplane crash.
Now, Sutton says that he's already talked to folks in the early stages of recovery at OSU and knows the process will be a long one.
But I've talked to a lot of people all day long, and you know, we all know accidents happen, and but hopefully after what we went through 10 years ago, the counselors and everybody at OSU will have a better way to maybe help the players and the coaches that are left.
Now, Sutton says OSU already has the proper steps in place to help cope with this tragedy. Guys?
Thank you, Al. In a few minutes, we're going to be checking in with 2 News sports reporter Jason Shackelford. He's with the Cowboys football team as they get ready to play Iowa State tonight. We will have much more on the OSU tragedy tonight on 2 News at 6 and 10, as well as on KGRH.com for you. Now, we have posted pictures and video, plus a look back at what happened in January of 2001.